this person's way as soon as I can. Alrighty. So here we are. Kind of warm. I'm thinking that the camera mount looks good. At least all I can say for sure is that when I glance at it, it's not wobbling around nearly as badly as any camera mount I've ever had. Ever built or ever had, bought or whatever. So I'm quite happy about that. Yeah. Yeah. No. And another issue that I have with this camera that I really don't know the answer to yet is where the camera actually sits in the field of view of the windshield. More specifically, related to where the windshield wiper comes across, because yeah, it looks like it's gonna be pretty good. But let's see if I can. It looks to me like the upper right corner, it isn't going to get cleaned if I'm in bad weather. Now, you know. Okay. Now I haven't done Fraser that long, which is funny. It's not far from Granby, but new account. And I'm not familiar with the rhythm of the traffic here. Some days I go here, people are driving really slow. Some days I find people are driving really fast through here. Take it out in four-wheel drive. I think I actually needed it. So I'm doing 67. Now I dropped it down. I want to let that person get ahead of me. In light of where the windshield wipers actually reach. Yeah. So I probably should take a picture of this mount so that you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm talking all about it. I'm testing it. If I do publish this, I will do that. I'll take a picture of this mount so you can, maybe I'll describe it just a little bit, the things that I wanted to do with it. Yeah. One of the cool things about this mount is that it's all attached to the ceiling. So it's not that it's incognito. That's not what but what it is it's just really, it's not that visually in the way. I don't really, I mean, I see the camera up there, but it's really not a big deal at all. Now, what I don't like about Fraser is that right now I have someone on my ass. and she's got someone on her ass. So, that's. What I do like about, Fraser, excuse me, this is Tabernash. Well, Fraser, this is basically the Fraser Trent, right? We're in Tabernash, which is a neat little town. I like the fire station there. That's really cool. It almost looks like something that came from Russia. It's got a Russian look to it. And actually, Tabernash is an odd-looking little town. At any rate, the buildings are pretty odd and out of place. I guess they're really not out of place. They're in Tabernash, so I guess they're essentially in place. Oh yeah, cool. Luffing are pretty good. Now, all morning we've been heading into the sun. We've been heading mainly east and mainly south, but with a slight jog north, just a real slight jog northish when we got off of Rabbit Ears. And for that matter, Rabbit Ears really twists around a lot. But now we are heading where the camera, I don't know if the picture will be better or worse, or I just don't know. But I wanted to note that if the picture is substantially better, probably a good thing to know. Yeah, this is Highway 40. This is actually the same highway that goes between Steamboat and Craig, and we were on Highway 40 all the way until we turned off of it to go to Walden at the Walden turn, right? And so 40 is a pretty big road around here, 2-lane, and I find that doing a commercial enterprise where you're driving on a 2-lane highway in situations where you have unreasonably crowded roads from time to time, occasionally desolate roads, and occasionally you just can't see anything. We have all of that stuff. It's a little different than, say, for instance, if I were on I-70, doing routes on I-70, which would be, and I've actually done some of that, the job down there, down south of us, which would be Aspen, Breckenridge, Vale, that area. Then I would be on a 4-lane highway, which I found when I was doing that, and it was with this car, that this car really doesn't have the top end speed to do that day in and day out. I mean 70 is about tops for this car. It will go faster, but I've noticed that you get it to 75 and you run 75, which is I think I-70, and the gas mileage really, really drops. It just goes down to nothing. So So this is actually a pretty good two-lane road, or two-lane road car, except for the inability of this car to pass. I don't understand why that person was waiting for that. I do get impatient in traffic too. I really get annoyed with it. It's funny too. My sister is a truck driver. She has a channel on Rumble and on YouTube, Woman at the Wheel. And she does some pretty cool stuff. She hauls horse trailers around. She doesn't drive a semi. She drives a commercial pickup. And she's driven me around before. A few years ago, I had a job at the museum. Not the museum, excuse me. Wrong place. At the, what is it? The Perot Museum of Natural History and Science, I think is what it's called, in Dallas. And so I was staying down, I was down in that neck of the woods anyway. And so she volunteered to drive me down, which was great. I don't like Dallas traffic. Dallas is probably one of the most inconsiderate cities I've ever driven in. It saddens me to say, Seattle is probably the most considerate city that I've driven in, and it saddens me to say that also. Why? Well, you can figure that out for yourself. Leave that as a task to comment about. I'll tell you why if you comment. Anyway, I would laugh at her because she would get so mad at traffic. Little tiny things would set her off. Somebody would get a little too close to her or whatever, and she'd be like, that son of a bitch, shit, whatever. And I really picked on her, and I said, Sue, you've got to calm down. You've just got to relax. It's just traffic. And then this job expanded, like I said, expanded last year. And I went from a real sedentary few miles a week to 800 miles a week, roughly. And I found out that I've got a worse temper than she does. And I've had to really work on it. I flip people off. I mean, I get mad. I've just been all kinds of aggressive driving type stuff. And, well, okay, flipping people off or whatever. I do not do, certainly not intentionally, any kind of aggressive driving. This morning, when I was speeding up, because the speed limit changed, that's the only reason I was speeding up, and I had someone pass me at that point. And I felt bad about that because the guy was having a hard time getting around me, which is really bizarre because this car wasn't, I should have waited, let him go around me, and then sped up. That would have given him some safety. I didn't do that. I wasn't thinking. I need to think. That was a stupid thing to do. So, note to self. Don't make it harder for people to pass you. I get really pissed when people do that to me. And I think they do that to me occasionally. In fact, I was almost in a head-on accident because of what I believed to be that, in a different vehicle. I was in my Cherokee, which is a pretty strong vehicle, passing two vehicles, and the last vehicle that I passed, I was having a hell of a time getting around him. And I think that vehicle was speeding up. And as that vehicle was, like I say, I believe speeding up, I mean, I was going really fast to get around him. I was doing 85 or 90. A car, we approach a corner, I'm already committed to passing, a car comes. It's like, holy shit, what do? I don't really have time to back away, and so I just tuck in. I sort of straddle the center lane in the hopes that the oncoming car will just move over to the side. There's plenty of room for everyone to fit. But that happened to me, and I thought about that for a long time. I'm a pretty damn good driver. Usually, I've never been in a situation like that before. And my timing seems to be pretty good. So I don't understand what happened this time. It was very strange. And although I know that it benefits me to think this, I do believe that the person I was passing sped up. And I've had a few of these things happen to me. Now, I do think that in this vehicle, I'm more phobic about that, because this vehicle is so slow, so slow to accelerate. It's very low horsepower. But at the same time, it's got good gearing and it does pretty good. But passing on highway speeds, man, this car it doesn't want to do it. I mean, I got to plan it out. And yeah. I passed a car this morning before I was filming, between Craig and Steamboat. I didn't want to film that segment because the sun would just be right in the way. But I passed a vehicle, what I thought was clear, when there was a vehicle coming. I thought I had enough room. Anyway, I got around it. But the vehicle that I was passing freaked out completely. They got over into the shoulder and stomped on the brakes. I mean, it was like, I'm glad that they were concerned about that, but they were they overacted quite a lot about that. So, but anyway, because the car accelerates so slow, I have a phobia that people are always speeding up when I try to pass them. I don't really know how to think about that other than that. So, anyway, in case you haven't noticed, we've turned around. We're back in Granby. You probably noticed that, especially if the camera's taking good photos. Going over the railroad tracks, and then we went over the Colorado River just a moment ago. And we're going to go through some really cool little towns on the way back. 123. Yeah, I'm pretty late. This is going to get me in late today. So, but that's okay. I think it's reasonable. Let's see. Find out. I'm going to go ahead here. Put it in four-wheel drive. Okay. I'll put my So this is a really cool town. By the way, the Amtrak, which I would actually like to ride on, comes through this way. Occasionally I see it. Probably won't see it today. I don't know if it's every day or if it's once or twice a week. I have no idea. I think it's the Zephyr, right? California Zephyr. I could be wrong about that. By the way, I am quite not really knowledgeable about all that stuff. So apparently we're recording. Seems to be all good. Clean my windows. Seems to be good. This must be chips. I believe that Granby is like 7,500 feet, but I don't really know. I do have an altitude gadget on my phone. I think I have erased it. So if you're ever in this area and you want to go see Rocky Mountain National Park, and there's some cool lakes around here. Grand Lake, I think a Grand B is probably Grand By, or by Grand Lake. I don't know, but that does seem reasonable. Or where that truck just turned will take you up to the lakes and take you to Rocky Mountain National Park. That's a pretty busy road that way. Then the next valley that we are looking at from here, you can see the valley shooting up north, up off to the right. That is how we came down. We came down from that valley. I don't know if the resolution is good on this camera, but I can see the road from here down low. Now it's covered. Now it's obscured by the trees, the cottonwood trees over there to the right. So I'm going to take it out of four-wheel drive. We're going to attempt that for a while. And the Colorado River, which is interesting. I thought we actually crossed all of it. Huh. Well, that's right. That's right. That's not the Colorado River. I don't know what river that is, but it's not there. It's not very big, but okay. That'll make sense. I've only lived here most of my life, and I thought the Colorado River, well, I've seen it on Google Earth. I thought maybe there was a tributary or something. I know, yeah, this is inside baseball, right? So. This is really cool. There's a dam here. I think this is a power generation, like a little hydro station. And they've got a rest area. It's really neat. But we just passed the road back up to Rand. Our next town will be Hot Sulphur Springs. And I don't really think there's much hot sulfur in Hot Sulphur Springs anymore. But it's certainly part of that volcanic area that I was telling you about. We're basically going to do a circle around that volcanic area. What do I mean by that? The area that was south of us when we were back up heading towards Rand, if I split this video up, then that will make absolutely no sense at all. But you know, it's a volcanic area. I guess ancient volcanic area was probably the right way to phrase it. And we are following the Colorado River. It is over to our left. And the Union Pacific Railroad, main road going through Colorado. But you can see some volcanic thingamajiggers over there on the right. I mean, it is what it is. It's a mountainous, neat place. What I don't know is the mining history in this area of Colorado. It may be nothing. I don't know. Just so you know, I'm going about 67, just so I know. I'm going about 67. Pretty smooth road. The mount, I can feel little vibrations in it, but nothing really big. Let's see. I mean, it's behaving well. It's not really what I would call a complicated mechanical device. It just has to be strong, and it should be strong. It's really heavy gauge aluminum, and I TIG welded pretty much everything so I wouldn't have a joint that could loosen through over time. But the platform that the camera sits on is tiltable. I didn't really want to try to figure that one out, to just guesstimate it. And I'm glad I did it. And not only that, but if I change cameras, the mount's big enough to hold, like say for instance, an SLR type camera. Like if I were to go to a Nikon or a Canon SLR, I could shoot video. I could just build a different mount, or maybe I wouldn't even have to. But if I would have the ability to, I believe. So, and I do this for the fun of it. I get paid very little. I get very tiny amounts of money from YouTube. I am, however, shadow banned on YouTube. So, after my first video, which sat there for a couple of years, and it now has like over 2 million views. But in 2019, YouTube, one day I was looking at 10,000 or so views a day. The next day it was less than 100. And it was around the time that YouTube was shadow banning a bunch of conservatives. And the only thing that YouTube could pin on me, as far as being a conservative, is that I am a white male. That's it. So they shut me down, and I have not forgiven them for that. They're assholes for what they did. I hope they pay, because they've done it to thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. It's incredibly evil what these people do. All for their ideology. All for the communist miracle that they want to bring in. Like communism has never been tried, and communism works every time. And obviously I'm being facetious, because communism is evil and communism is death. And that's all communism is. Evil people grabbing power and then abusing the people that they have power over. That's communism. That's all you really need to know about it. However, you should look into it, especially if you're someone who thinks communism is some great form of government. Lately, a lot of people in bureaucratic and elected positions in government have praised China, especially the way China locked everyone down for the COVID bullshit. And there's another one for you. There's another thing I'm going to stay away from. Well, I don't really stay away from anything anymore. Well, that's pretty bad when bureaucrats who know better, who should be smart. Although I heard a story about a local bureaucrat in our town, the city manager. Apparently, the guy that I know, the guy that my friends know, got some kind of email or was looking at porn or something on a website. Something. He ended up getting some information stolen. And the person that stole the information probably had his address. Yeah, it was an email. Yeah, it probably hacked into his email, had his address book, and was writing people claiming different things. oh, I'm broke, and we just back from a COVID funeral, and I really don't have any money. And could you buy this thing for me or whatever? And he my friends got this email. My friends own a jewelry store. They got this email, and I'm telling them, man, that is a bad scam. I said, more than likely the guy was looking at porno. But maybe not. You don't have to be looking at porno to get screwed. I know that sounds funny. To get screwed on your computer. You can, you may have just hit the wrong website. Anyway, whatever. However, another person was emailed. The city manager of Craig was emailed, and he fell for the email, and he gave this person money, or gave money somehow. I don't know exactly how the story went. All I know is that this person fell for it. Now that a city manager, and my shock was, wait a second, a city manager? I would think that someone, to be a city manager, would need to be able to have some discernment over bullshit and not bullshit, be able to make a relatively good call, and have be able to hold back, not just jump in, right? Because the city manager, well, sadly, I think the city manager has a lot of control over the funds that we pay in taxes to the city, to our local city. So, and what I've found when I look is that bureaucrats are not necessarily the sharpest sticks in the bundle. But they have a talent to get elected or hired into a pretty damn into really powerful positions. Now, by the way, I just want to point out, the guy driving this truck in front of us is going extremely slow. He's doing 24. You could probably do 35 in here. He's probably not someone who knows how to drive in the snow. He's doing a very poor job of driving in the snow. And because of that, New Mexico, who's the car in front of me, and I've got a car behind me, and me, we are going quite a bit slower because of this guy. This canyon is called Byers Canyon, and it's a really cool canyon. And for that matter, down in the bottom of the canyon, well over on the right side, are the railroad tracks. That's where the California Zephyr, I believe that's the right train. When it comes through Colorado, it runs through this canyon. And it also runs through another canyon, which will probably go down, which is Gore Canyon. I'm not extremely convinced I want to go that way because it's probably going to be warm enough to make the road muddy. On the other hand, I was on Gore Pass. Of course, the weather's better right now, but the wind is kicked up. I don't know. It's a little bit longer if I go that way, but it's a much safer road. Anyway, the railroad, the railroad tracks run through that canyon, and that's quite a canyon. This is a cool canyon too. I really like Byers Canyon, and there are some interesting rocks in here. I'd love to stop and dink around. However, there's a lot of rockfall that happens in this canyon, and by spring there'll be a bunch of rocks down here, some of them as big as cars, that have fallen off the side of this canyon. It's really quite a deal. Rugged country. The next town that we're going to go to is Kremling. What is it, about 15 miles away from here? Maybe wrong about that. that person is either wanting to stop and look or just gave up. Yeah, this guy is not a mountain driver, or he's a newbie. But there are a lot of immigrants that drive, and they can have a hard time driving on these mountainous roads. Not only that, but in Craig, with what Biden has done, there are a huge influx of South Americans in Craig that drive to work in Steamboat. Actually, I think Steamboat hires immigrants. I think that they're the attraction. And I do believe that the government in Colorado and the ski areas are, what's the old-fashioned term? In cahoots, friend. They're in cahoots to flood this area with low. Can I pass this side? Better not. All right. Car coming. Let's try this again. See, I don't have any acceleration. I have very little acceleration. This guy is going slower. That's really the only reason that I could get around him. And the speed limit is 55 back there, here actually. It looks to me like he was actually going a little bit faster than 55. Now that he got out of the canyon, he kicked it up. Don't blame him, but it's one of those situations where I was behind him long enough, I had to pass him because he annoyed me. So. In Granby, Sulphur Springs, I really don't know why those towns were settled. I'm thinking it probably had to do with agriculture more than mining, but it could have had something to do with mining. So I just don't know. I would like to know. I have looked, but I haven't looked hard enough to get a good answer. So, anyway. Oh yeah, Parshall, this little town. I keep forgetting his name. Parshall. P-A-R-S-H-A-L-L. Yeah. Just a neat little town on the side of the road here. You know, they could have been railroad towns too. That would be a reasonable. I think that would be a reasonable assumption. Because at one point in time, a railroad really needed a lot of support, you know, steam engines. So they needed fuel and water. And there were a lot more people that operated the trains, brakemen, actual real engineers, real conductors. I mean, that was a much more labor-intensive thing than it is now. Now it's two or three guys on a train. Typically just two guys, an engineer and a conductor. We just passed a lumber facility. I'm not sure what they make. They may make OSB though. It was over on the right. So recording coming along, looks good. All right, so I'm back. I'm also testing out some batteries that are supposed to be extremely long duration. And I have been relying on the when I start this camera up, it tells me that the battery has so many hours left of life. And that's a lie, because I was in Granby and I checked the battery life and it said I still had like 2 hours or something of battery life. I should have known that something was fishy. So as I was heading from Granby to Kremling, this camera, the battery died. Now, there are two scenarios. One is bad, one might not be as bad. The first scenario is that I think, and it might be, we'll find out, if you run out of one or the other while you're filming, the file is corrupted. Which means that if what corrupts the file is running out of power, it might actually be that, then I have lost that segment from Granby to here, which is not a big deal. I mean, this is a test and whatever. And then whatever I was blabbing about, you know, whatever. So we'll see. 5 degrees here in Kremling. Oh, nice to see. So, yeah. So we'll see. We will see. Now, I have 2 batteries. I put a fresh battery in because I really do want to film Gore Canyon. Now, I hope that my recording time, my SD card, isn't lying to me, because it might be. And if it is lying to me, then maybe I'll have the same issue. I'll run out of recording space. So we'll see. But I'm gonna go stop and go do my thing. I'll be right back. So you can sort of see the canyon entrance where we're going, and we're not actually going to drive down into the canyon. We're going to take a road called the Trough Road. That's my plan. It's probably going to be somewhat muddy because the sun has been out for a while. Typically means that. But I'm going to drive this way so that you can see the canyon. You can actually see, it's really a hell of a canyon. I think it's a 3,000 foot. I think that's what I've seen. So there it is. But we're going to have to go around. We're looking to the south roughly, we're going to have to go around to the east of it and then south of that spot also. So we're going to do that right now. And I got myself some keto-friendly Dairy Gold whipping cream, which I would rather drink anymore now that I've learned a little bit about keto and about what is high quality fat and what isn't. I find that, in my opinion anyway, and a lot of people's, well, in some people's opinions that know about this stuff, they strangely have an issue with dairy when they know that dairy is one of the best sources of fat. I mean, milk is made by God, right? If you believe in God, if you believe in creation, God made us, we make milk. So and if you believe in creation and you believe that God made milk, that God, then, you know, and the idea behind milk is that it allows a baby to get all the nutrition that baby needs to get to grow up, to grow. And that within the nutrition is everything for every part of your body, like I said, to grow. Now, cow's milk is different than human milk, which is different than other milk, but at the same time, they have a lot in common. So, anyway, when I hear people that otherwise I think are making really good sense start getting snippy about dairy, it's an interesting thing, especially people that are relatively new to this high fat thing, people that went through college and were indoctrinated as to how bad dairy is and how bad meat is, and are probably trying to unlearn bad habits. Busy helicopter today, or busy airport today. Helicopter just headed out. Probably saw that. I'm in four-wheel drive now, but we're getting ready to turn onto what is going to be a snowy and muddy road. So it might not be that muddy. It might be. I mean, the sun has been shining all day. We also have been pretty damn cold. So. We'll see. So the canyon we were just looking down the throat of is now like about 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock, over to our left. And we have to go over to the right, excuse me, not the left. We have to go to the left. And up the hill. You can sort of see the road weaving up the side of that mountain. We have a pass to go through. It's really nice. A lot of people I've noticed really haul ass on this road. If the speed limit is 40, it may be different speed limits, but people go 80, 75, 80, 90. I've seen people fly down this road like they were in a off-road endurance race or an off-road motocross type race. I believe we just passed over the Blue River. Colorado River goes down that canyon. Colorado River cut that canyon, most likely. Those are pretty mountains. If we go that direction, which is south, we would end up in Frisco, in Dillon, in that area. We'd hit Interstate 70, and we could catch Vail or, Breckenridge, whatever. Get to Leadville. If we turn east, if we turn west, we could go through Glenwood Canyon, go to Aspen, go to Grand Junction, head out towards Utah on I-70 headed west. This road's pretty frigid. We may not get into much mud up here. That'll suit me just fine. How's the glare? Well, let's see if that UV filter does any good. Got a lot of glare. Oh, by the way, those mountains to the south of us are called the Elk Mountains, yeah. And they could be, there could be a 14er in there, I'm not sure. They're pretty tall mountains, so there could be a 14er or two in there, but they may not. I don't really know. So now we're waving goodbye to those cool mountains. You know, in the summertime, this is one heck of a cool road. This road is a real tourist road that links the rafting industry. Well, it gives the rafting industry, actually it gives them their industry, period, because there's a great big camp down here, and there's several campgrounds where you can raft from wherever to wherever. Excuse me. Kind of one of Kremling's more noticeable businesses would be, yeah, tourism, mainly the Colorado River. The road isn't too bad yet, and it may not get too bad. But in the summer, the road is so heavily traveled that it's really washboardy, and I think they maintain it every week. They come through with water, they wet the road down, soften it up a little bit, and then they maintain it. You know, maintainers would smooth it. There's not much you can do about it in the winter. Other than when it's snowing, you know, plow the snow off the road. But in a way, the ice does fill up some of the holes. Sometimes it makes the holes worse. Sometimes ice makes bigger divots. You just never know. Yeah, the mounts are really nice and secure. I'm sure you can hear how rough the road is. You may not be able to see it really, but you can hear it. Oh hell, I get over it. I'll find one nice place and then it goes to hell. I'll find another nice place and it goes to hell. I'm not in a rush. That's the nice thing about it. I don't know if I said this or not, but this is called the Trough Road. I have no idea why. But we do follow this valley. Well, I don't know. That's another one of those things I don't really know the answer to. But I would assume there's some feature up here that was considered the trough. And that this road got its name by that, I guess. By the way, I'm drinking 16 ounces of heavy whipping cream just drinking it like a drink, like eggnog. Actually compares pretty well to eggnog. Calorie-wise, though, there's no sugar in it, or very little sugar in it. It's mainly cream and whey, and a bit of lactic acid in the whey, not that much. So the carbohydrates in it are pretty slim. So yeah, now we're behind the sun. Pretty dramatic difference from my perspective, maybe not from yours. Depends on how the camera treats that. But now we're finally getting back into where the canyon is. And there's a pullover. You can stop, look. It's pretty impressive. Like I said, I think that's where I actually read that the canyon's highest point is 3,000 feet. That's impressive. It's a beastly canyon, really. And the idea that the train travels through there every day with coal, with diesel, with people, with groceries, with whatever a train carries. I mean, it's just shocking that it doesn't fall apart on them. Now in the summer and in the fall and probably in the spring, the area that we've just passed, the shady area, you can usually find mountain goats hanging out up here. I don't know where they're at now, but they hang out on the road, and I'll bet you that people stop and feed them. They seem pretty tame. So here's the little pullout. People roll coat concrete. Enjoy. You can look down to see the train track. Maybe you can. I can see it. So the river and the train track down in the bottom. What you can't do is look back through it like I can, but I'm actually going to drive so that someday I can come back up the other direction and maybe next week will be next week. For some reason, this section of road, I think it's sandy. It has got the worst. It typically has the worst washboards in it. The last time I was on this road, it was really it was warmer temperature, but it was snowy like this. It was melting, and my car was covered with mud. So that's kind of how it looks around here. The snow is definitely helping. And just for reference, I'm doing 40 to 42. I'm going to slow down up here though. I'm pumping the brakes right now. I don't like the looks of that slippery ice. Probably not as bad as I think. But this section is the worst section of the road when it's not covered with snow. I think that the composition of the soil here just doesn't handle the traffic as well as the rest of the road does. But the road's pretty crappy. everywhere. Look into that. Carry it. There is a lot of BLM land up here, Bureau of Land Management, public land, it used to be known as. I believe the government, in a sense, changed the definition of it, somewhat taking it away from the public and putting it under the domain of the bureaucrats. I imagine they wouldn't have made that change had they not changed the perception that this is public land. It used to be that people would say, this is your land. The government would say, this is your land, the public's land. I don't see that much anymore. But politically, I get it. Bureaucrats crave, and apparently need power. And they need people to subjugate. And you can't really subjugate people if you don't have power over them. And it's probably not a lot of fun to be a communist if you can't be mean and evil to people. If you can't make their lives miserable. Because that's what communism does to the regular person. Yes, I just burped. In case you're wondering, that cream that I just finished drinking is 50 calories per serving, a serving being half of an ounce. I think it's like a tablespoon or something, or I don't know, whatever, half an ounce. So it's a 16 ounce, and it was a 16 ounce carton. I prefer to find the 8 ounce cartons, but they're hard to find. But I'll drink 16 ounces, especially in this really cold weather. If for some reason I get stuck somewhere, I don't mind having all that fat, energy in my system. I noticed that, of course, I'm drinking 1,600 calories. Right? And that's mainly fat. Very little of it is carbohydrate. And I notice that when I do that, I can shovel it's amazing how much more power I've got. It just is what it is. It's the better energy for your body to run on. So, of course, it's become a political thing where the government doesn't want people to live off of fat, to have energy from fat. You got to wonder if it doesn't play into the rest of the extinction philosophy that the globalists and the communists all had. Or maybe the globalists are the only ones that have the extinction cult philosophy. Maybe the communists just like killing people for killing people. Maybe they don't have to have a reason to kill people. But the globalists, the Bill Gates, you know, the Klaus, what's his name? The guy that thinks we should all eat insects. Klaus? Is that his last name? Klaus? Klaus? I don't remember. Anyway, we have characters in our society that have nothing but our best interests at heart, right? I say best interests a bit sarcastically. Yeah. That's what happens when you pull off the side of the road around here. Did you see that? You get stuck. You probably have to dig yourself out. You know, like when you're traveling in snow and there's a berm on the edge of the road, you don't want to get on that berm because the berm has a way of sucking your car in. Even when you turn your tires away from the berm, where you think you push yourself out of the berm will still, it wants you. It wants to take you and lock you in. You gotta watch it. Snow's not terrible to drive on, but there definitely are things you need to know about it. You don't use your brakes, or you very, very little brake usage. Right now, I'm in second gear, and so I'm using my engine RPMs to hold my speed down about 38 miles an hour. And if I need to slow down a little bit further, I'll gently tap on the brakes multiple times. I will smash the brakes and hold them. That's a surefire ticket for sliding down the hill, even with the good tires like I have. So that's cool. There's a little campground called Radium. And I don't know if it's a town or if it's an actual spring called Radium Hot Springs. Notice that wood burner? It's that little building with a smokestack on it. That's either wood or coal. Looks like they got some wood there. It's a great way to keep your shop warm. Or your house warm for that matter. Those are very cool little gadgets. Boy, that lane was terrible. I have to get back in it probably. I'm not sure why. Maybe the sun is melting weird patterns into the ice. That could be quite an image. The sun is so low this time of year that in this car, I have to put my shade visor down to block the sun, which I'm doing right now. Of course, we are going uphill. So I'm a bit tilted towards them, you know, tilted upward. I'll bet you that these rough areas are the areas last week that were muddy and people were driving through, and you're picking mud up, and so you're creating ruts and bumps and washboards and divots. Probably so. Maybe so. I'm sure there's a reason why we are not in the canyon right now. If you notice, the canyon's basically over this ridge to our right. I'm sure the reason is that it is so incredibly steep and rough that this is where this is where the road was initially built. And you typically pick the path of least resistance. So I'm sure that's why we're not up on the side of the canyon looking down all the way through the whole canyon. But I like it. I think this is a really cool area. When we eventually drop down to the Colorado River, which we'll do here in about 2 or 3 miles, it's really nice. It's a really nice, pleasant view. Now, this is not a bad road at all. It's just a nice, safer route than Gore Pass. Gore Pass probably isn't that bad. I mean, if the roads have melted off and been plowed and properly cared for, it's probably not too bad at all. It's quite a different animal. Last week I came up this road from the direction that we're going last night. Reversed my route a little bit, but I came up this road to Kremling and I went back over Gore Pass, which I said Gore Pass is actually to the north of us, probably 15 miles. That's reasonable, but it's not a big savings in time to go on Gore Pass because it meanders and curves quite a bit, and the speeds are pretty slow. But it's beautiful up there. But it's also beautiful down here. This is a different, just a different feel, more of a western Colorado feel down in here because we're down in pinyon pines and sagebrush. But I do like Gore Pass much better than Rabbit Ears. Rabbit Ears is bad, brother. It is bad. We're doing pretty good. We've been averaging probably 35 through here. So this is an upper campground area, private property that I see, but it's all kind of ties into the rafting and fishing. Mainly, I think rafting, but rafting, fishing, kayaking, tubing. You know, they do all that stuff here. And you can see why. It's a beautiful canyon. It's beautiful scenery, beautiful country. It's just everything is really nice about it. So down in the bottom, it's like a little city in the summer. It's kind of like a city right now. And I believe that this is just owned by one person. Maybe the rafting outfit. It's really kind of a big outfit. Maybe they own it. Rancho del Rio. Okay. River Ranch. All right. So I finally made it to the bottom. The next little town that we're going to go through is called State Bridge. And I don't even know that it's really a town. It's actually a bridge. Apparently, it's a state bridge. It's on a state highway, State Highway 131. So I suppose it is. Then there's a siding right here, Yarmany. If you don't know what a siding is, it's a place on a railroad where you can split off into a different set of tracks. So basically like a passing lane, you know, there's multiple lanes. And these cars that are sitting out there, they're definitely coal cars. And they could be going up to Craig, up to Steamboat and Craig to 20 Mile. Actually, more accurately, I should say Hated. Or they could be going to Paonia in that area. I don't know if there are still 3 mines active over there, but there used to be 3 mines. And I've been to every one of them. I worked at 20 Mile coal mine, which is south of Hayden, in Route County. I've worked at Valley Mine, and I can't think of the other two. Valley. No. But there are 3 mines, all within like 5 miles of each other, going northeast out of Paonia. Cool area, very pretty. South and west of here probably by 70 miles. In the big mountains, really. it was an interesting job that I had when I worked at 20 Mile. The miners didn't like me at all, but they put up with me. I appreciate that. The job was, the title of the job was the Mexico Train Inspector. And I worked for a company called SGS Minerals Services. I don't know if they're headquartered in Denver, but that was where my supervisor was. A guy by the name of Zeke Sarko. Neat guy. I can't tell whether this is melting or whether it's just shiny. Well, I hope you appreciated the little river forest section that we just climbed out of. I think it's really a cool area here. And so what I would do for this job is I would go at any time of the day. I was on call, and I would go and I'd watch the loading of the train. I would go up and I every so often during the loading of the train, I would go up and check the sample system to make sure that it was running properly, to make sure that nobody was cheating or whatever. Then I would take possession of the sample, take it to the lab, and I didn't do any lab work on it, but I did split it and bag it. Slow down here. Like it's a little bit sloppy in spots here. And then I would send it off to a couple different places for an analysis, and also we had a referee sample that we would keep out at the mine. I mean, it seemed like I sent 4 bags of coal off. Basically 4 1-kilogram bags of coal. But we would also keep the remainder of the sample, which was well, no, we actually did. We dumped it out. That's right. But anyway, that was my job. It was a pretty good job. Like all the weird jobs I have, I wrote it out till the end of the job. Mexico and 20 Mile got into a pissing contest, I think is a proper term. Got mad at each other and got their backs up. And told each other to go to hell. That was it for me. So we're still recording. I think. Yeah, I'm going to stop up here. Now, this is a really pretty little drive too. This is Highway 131, State Highway 131. My favorite way to get down to the interstate. The only thing that I don't like about this road, well, 2 things. The speed limit's kind of low, and because of that, pretty much everybody coming up here, like for their ski vacation in Steamboat or whatever, they're going 10, 15 miles an hour over the speed limit. Really annoying. You know, they're hauling ass and they shouldn't be, but and again, I understand why. You know, like right now the speed limit's 40, and I'm doing more than 40. and having absolutely no issues whatsoever, safety issues. I find that there are areas in Colorado where the roads have weird speed limits, probably for some stupid, obscure detail. Well, I think I'll look to the top. Maybe I'll go to Yampa. Shut off in Yampa. I can shut it off right now. Maybe I'll do that. Okay, I'm going to shut you off and turn you back on right here. All right. I did that just to make sure that I preserved that last shot of Gore Canyon. Whether I need it or not, I don't know, but there are some things that I mind more rather than less losing, and it would be one of them. This is a cool little spot down here, this 131. My younger brother and his wife lived here in Bond for a while, up a little road called Copper Spur Road, which I believe is right. Is that it right there? No, I don't think that's it. I think it's down here. And her parents lived here, moved from Craig and lived here for a while, up Copper Spur Road. Neat place. There's some interesting mines here. It's a really nice geological area. I believe that's Copper Spur Road. Nope, this is the pullout. It's been a long time, y'all. I'm going to, take it out four-wheel drive at this point. It's not. Now we're still following the Colorado River. It's over to our left now. And so is the main rail line. One of the rail lines winds off right up here, or did we pass it? We may have passed it. I think it's actually up here though. It winds off and heads up towards Steamboat, which is the way we're going. And it will terminate in Craig. That's where it's stopped. There's also, more importantly for me, a place that I can get out and use the facilities. Right there, just past the two bridges, there's a little government shop. The bathrooms are closed, and that really annoys me. They're locked up. Apparently people don't recreate in the winter around here. They don't need to go to the bathroom. But I don't know why the government does that. Like they really worry about money. Maybe they just do it to be mean. Because I don't know if the government is ever worrying about money. Okay. Or maybe that's their answer to people that say, hey, you're spending too much money. Say, fine. We'll lock up the toilets in the winter and you can't use them. How you like that? I don't know. But as someone who drives for a living right now, I do have other jobs, but right now this is actually my part-time job. And I have my own company and I do my own thing, and I make, usually when I'm doing my own thing, I make a heck of a lot more money than I make doing for this other company. But I like the drive. I like to see this world. It's such a beautiful place here. You know, it's so interesting. The drive is just, you know, it's great. Back when I didn't have this job, I would just go take drives, and I still do. It's funny because the spur that goes north actually crosses the highway, and I don't remember crossing it, but I may well have crossed it. It just didn't register. This is a pretty cool area. We're getting ready to head north, and the river's to our left is getting ready to go more to the west. So we're sort of saying goodbye to the river valley and snaking up this other valley. And this little town is called McCoy.